Well, hi again, YouTube. It's Rob Ryder on Saturday, August 16th, 2025. And today, Commander Trump's brief to an enlistee on the Second Amendment. Well, who's that enlistee? Well, that'd be Rytlewski Robert Allen, Soldier for Life. DOD ID number 12112800006. And this has to do with my last video I did was to Commander Trump. I captured the Underground Pentagon. Give me an order. I was, making sure that Commander Trump was aware that enlistees are the only class of people who have an oath, who have in their oath that they will obey the orders of the President of the United States. Commission officers don't have it, FBI agents don't have it, judges don't have it. Only people that have it are enlistees. And went on further to point out that, once we were enlisted, we've not been discharged. Which I'll leave you to go watch the video. I'll show you all my proofs for that. But a lot of it, I was trying to point out to them, say, look, you're getting some really shitty legal advice from your Esquires. And I'm going to show you another example here, just as soon as this thing opens up. So here's just a quick example. This is supposed to be an order from the United States Court of Appeals, in which Mike Davis, an Esquire, close to Trump, reposted with Margot Cleveland, a professor Esquire, right, where she's senior legal correspondent, 25 years, 7th Circuit law clerk, da 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 da. So they're supposed to be, learned in the law. Well, when you look at this order, you'll see that it's not been signed by anybody. It doesn't have a court seal. And all you have to do is go look at the Title 28 United States Code, right? Title 28, Judiciary and Judicial Procedure. 1691, all writs and process issuing from a court of the United States shall be under the seal of the court and signed by the clerk thereof. It couldn't be any clearer. Well, not only wasn't this signed, it doesn't have a seal, so this is not an order of a court of the United States. I don't know what court it is then, but it's not a court of the United States. So as far as I'm concerned, it's a simulated legal process under color of law, and these folks are all in violation of a fraud against the United States, which is a military crime. It can be tried under the UCMJ. And so if I'm an enlistee still, I should be able to go to JAG, or I'd actually just go find a general court-martial convening authority, such as the president, but there's all sorts of them, garrison commanders and so forth. It's all in the UCMJ, who has these authorities, and file charges and specifications. Say, look, somebody has issued this order and there's no seal on it, sir, and there's no signature. Well, the great thing about a court-martial is, according to the manual of court-martials, the court-martial has the jurisdiction to determine if the court-martial has jurisdiction. You can't get any more power than that. So, the only way to test it is to give them something to decide if they have jurisdiction or not. But of course, Esquires don't want that to happen because they make a shitload of money taking crap like this to court and pretending it's an order and getting everybody to follow along. It's a fucked up system we have, sir. And then in that video, I was showing, hey, I got this letter from the President Trump from the White House, and that's his signature, and he's not supposed to use auto pen. So as far as I'm concerned, President Trump sent this to me. And, this had nothing to do with what I was talking about at the time. It was more to prove to him, I'm the guy that you wrote. Well, so then I do this, and I do the video. Commander Trump, I captured the Under-Ground Pentagon. I did this on the 13th of August, in the middle of the afternoon. And about 6 hours later, I get another letter from the White House. Now, normally, the only time I ever got a letter was the other one I got. And I got it because I would go to this site here on the White House website, right? Contact us and fill this out and, tell the president a thing or two. But I didn't do that this time. I used the video where I said in the video, I'm using this as a way to try to contact Commander Trump. You know, maybe some in-betweener will get this message to him. And then later on in the day, I get this reply, and it's talking about, thank you for taking the time to share your views regarding our Second Amendment rights. Now, I never, ever, ever wrote to the Commander-in-Chief or the White House and talked about the Second Amendment, right? And so the closest thing that I did, and, you know, you take it all into context now. I did the video, I get this answer. So he's talking about what I had said in the video. Where in the video, I was trying to tell him that, hey, we're enlistees. We all need to have ID cards. And we don't have them. And so that's like a violation of the Geneva Convention. Right? Because I'm still in the military. And not only am I still in, I need an ID card because I'm still in. I have pay coming to me because that's part of my contract with the military. So that's all the context. And let's see what he had to say. And then we'll just follow through and see if it makes any sense on, you know, the future for enlistees. So, dear Soldier-for-Life Rytlewski, thank you for taking the time to share your views regarding Second Amendment rights. My administration is committed to defending the right of our free and sovereign people to keep and bear arms. Keep and bear arms, right? So it's not just bear, it's also keep. So, you know, keeping a weapon and bearing a coat of arms go together. Our founding fathers understood that the ability of law-abiding citizens to stand up to tyranny and defend themselves, their families, and their property is a hallmark of self-government. As president, I will always protect the sacred right to self-defense so that we can keep our homes, schools, neighborhoods safe, preserve our glorious inheritance of liberty and democratic self-rule for future generations. So I'm going to interject my thoughts on this. The sacred right of self-defense, that doesn't mean you can pick up a gun and shoot some dude walking down your hallway. That's great. Yes, you can. But I should be able to go to the court of the Esquire and say, you fuckers aren't doing it right. And so you're not going to stick me with your bullshit. Right? Because those guys, they never use their full legal name. They don't use your full legal name when you're the defendant. Now, sometimes they do, but they never use their full legal name. And the judge never uses his full legal name. And the clerk never uses her full legal name. And so it can't be legal. And so this is why that order doesn't have a signature on it, because they're really not doing it as a court of the United States. They're just pretending. It's a simulated legal process under color of law. And it violates my rights. So then, under the provisions of administration, the Second Amendment was under relentless attack, under the previous administration, shortly after taking office to restore the rule of law and uphold our Constitution. I signed an executive order directing the Attorney General, an Esquire, to review all actions of my predecessor on firearms. That's enough on that. And to stop all federal infringement on Americans' constitutional rights. Okay, well, I just have a right to have the frickin' ID. So, you know, that's where I'm going with this. With the passage of the historic One Big Beautiful Bill, we ended a massive 200 tax on firearm suppressors. The tax, which had been on the books since 1934, is now zero. And that was a tax stamp. Now, there used to be a thing called a documentary tax stamp, or documentary tax, you paid for with the stamp. And so if you wanted to file paperwork into the court, you had to go to the court and get their paperwork with their stamp on it. You couldn't just put in a piece of paper. Right? Well, the federal government has bond paper that has an eagle on it as a watermark. Right? It's got the coat of arms on it. Now, you never see them using it, but it is there, and they, you know, it's got an NSA number or a national stock number. And so it, you know, it's used all over the place, but you never see it used in court, although it's supposed to be the court. So what does that mean? I mean, we need to be using that paper, and because we're not, they don't pay any attention to our paper? We didn't put it into the right court? I don't know. Anyways, your Second Amendment rights will be protected under my leadership. Outstanding. I will always defend America's right to keep and bear arms. I will never stop working to uphold liberties that make our country safer, freer, and greater than ever before. Well, that would be giving an enlistee like myself my ID card and letting me file charges and specifications against esquires, judges, and clerks who fail to use their proper name and fail to fill out their paperwork properly. And I'll just say it's a fraud against the United States, put in the complaint, and let the court martial decide. So thank you again for writing. May God bless you, and may He continue to bless the United States of America. Down John Trump. He doesn't use an auto pen, so this is from the president. And so, sure enough, here's on the White House, protecting Second Amendment rights on February 7, 2025. I wanted to highlight it a bit, so that's where it is. This is where you'll find it officially. And this isn't, but it's the same wording. So, by the authority vested in me as President, the Constitution, laws of the United States of America is hereby ordered. Second Amendment is indispensable safeguard of security and liberty. It has preserved the right of American people to protect ourselves, our families, and freedoms since the founding of our great nation, because it's foundational in maintaining all other rights held by Americans. The right to keep and bear arms must not be infringed. Well, I'm saying it was okay. Well, I'm talking about a coat of arms. That would be the seal of the. It's actually not the seal, because the seal's got two sides on it, but the coat of arms is on one side, and then they have something else on the other side. So what's the plan of action? Within 30 days of the date of this order, the Attorney General and Esquire shall examine all orders, regulations, guidance, plans, international agreements, other actions of the Executive Department and agencies to assess any ongoing infringements of Second Amendment rights of our citizens, and present a proposal of a plan of action to the President through the Domestic Policy Advisor to protect the Second Amendment rights of all Americans. Well, that would have been by March 7th, right? So the Attorney General should have had that turned in quite some time ago. In developing such proposal, the Attorney General shall review, and you're going to review all these different things here. And then implementation upon submission of a proposed plan of action described in Section 2. Attorney General shall work with the Domestic Policy Advisor to finalize the plan of action and establish a process for implementation. And then we got these general provisions. So nothing in this order shall be construed to impair or otherwise affect the authority granted by law to the Executive Department, agency, or head thereof, or the functions of the Director of Office of Management and Budget relating to budgetary, administrative, and legislative proposals. So it's just interesting that, who's the players we got involved. We got the Director of OMB, some guy that's the Domestic Policy Advisor, and the Attorney General. And they're supposed to make sure that to assess any ongoing infringements of Second Amendment rights of our citizens. Well, you're not giving me my ID card. You're infringing my Second Amendment right. Because here's military ID cards. It says Armed Forces of the United States, Geneva Conventions Identification Card, and right there on it is the coat of arms of the United States. So if I had me one of those, well, then that would put you in a whole different group than where you find yourself now, where they just say, well, no, you got a DD-214. You're not in the military anymore. I showed in the last video right in the law, right in the Army regulation, where it says that a DD-14 has no bearing at all on your legal status as far as being in the military or not. So after, getting a reply from the president and reading what it said and looking at what it talked about, and it talking about this particular presidential action, and reading it, and it's like, well, okay, I don't want to go back to an Esquire. That's not doing me any good. And I couldn't find an address to the Domestic Policy Advisor, but the Director of Office of Management and Budget, well, he was quite a bit easier to find something on. And as it turns out, the Director of the Office of Management and Budget oversees the implementation of the President's policies and priorities across the executive branch, with primary focus on budget formulation, execution, management, regulatory oversight. So if the President says we're going to, protect the Second Amendment, then this is the dude that has something to do with that. I'm just saying part of that has to do with, well, then I need an ID card because I want to bear some arms. So I decided to write him back, and luckily they found a fax number for him and said, okay, I can send it by a fax, which is much better than an email because a fax is part of the common carrier, where there's nothing regulated about email. I mean, somebody can send an email, say to the president, and not get in any trouble. Go figure. So did I really get a letter from the president? I don't know, but I'm going to say that I did and just continue on that path. Director of the Office of Management and Budget, Soldier-for-Life, reporting as ordered by the Commander-in-Chief. Dear Director, on the 13th of August, 2025, I received a message written to Soldier-for-Life Rytlewski from White House, within which President Trump highlighted that he had signed an executive order directing the Attorney General to stop all federal infringement on Americans' constitutional rights, and especially that the right to keep and bear arms must not be infringed. As a soldier for life, I have the right to bear the coat of arms of the United States by way of an Armed Forces of the United States Geneva Conventions compliant identification card. However, the federal government is infringing on this constitutional right. Not only do I have the right to proper identification, but the United States is in violation of the Geneva Convention and DoD Law of War Manual, as these documents require all members of the armed forces to be issued proper identification. Director, I am till this day an enlistee in the Armed Forces of the United States, a fact acknowledged by the Commander-in-Chief himself by his addressing me twice now as a soldier for life, his signing the Legion Act into law in 2019, establishing that the United States has been in a continuous war since Pearl Harbor, and 10 U.S.C. 506 mandating enlistment ends when terminated by the President. That's when you get out of your enlistment, when you get something from the President saying he terminated your enlistment. Until then, your ass is still in. The law is on my side, and yet Pamela Jo Bondi, Esquire, acting as United States Attorney General, somehow overlooked that the administrative state is denying millions of veteran enlistees their Geneva Conventions identification card, confirming by the admission that the United States is warring against international law. My oath of enlistee does not allow for this deceit, and I petition for redress. Further, I have a contract, DD Form 4, with the Armed Forces of the United States, upon which both parties agreed that as long as I am an enlistee, I'm entitled to receive pay, allowances, and other benefits as provided by law and regulation. I am disenfranchised of this entitlement because of administrative errors and omissions in official records of the United States and left insecure in my person, papers, and effects. Yet another federal government infringement of constitutional rights. President Trump's Protecting Second Amendment Rights presidential action dated February 7, 2025 mentions your authority outside of the presidential action to include budgetary, administrative, or legislative proposals. I'd like to propose you fix the administration of military identification cards and see that all enlistees since Pearl Harbor possess a Geneva Conventions compliant ID ASAP. Let me know how I can help secure my constitutional rights. There you go, right? Hey, Russell Voigt, right? You need to get us enlistees our ID card. Now, I know that some enlistees have a discharge. Certificate of discharge. Let's look at that real quick, because this is kind of interesting. So this is the enlistment contract for an enlistee, right? Enlistment, re-enlistment document, Armed Forces of the United States. It's a contract. You get all done. You're going to sign it. The military is going to sign it. You have a contract. This is a real honest-to-God contract, because both parties signed the contract. And in this contract, it says that for all enlistees and re-enlistees, I'm entitled to receive pay, allowances, and other benefits as provided by law and regulations. Well, that's simple enough. All right, so that's the contract. So now you do your time and you get a DD-214. And all this document says is a certificate of release or discharge from active duty. But it didn't say discharge from military, just from active duty, right? So basically, you've been put back in the reserves. Now, if you really look at your document, you're going to find out, well, this thing has been filled out wrong. I'm almost positive you're going to find errors in yours. Mine's got all sorts of them. The biggest one being I never signed the damn thing. So that would mean that I was discharged in absentia, which is another way of saying that I was AWOL. Yet I got honorable discharge and so forth. But what you find out with these words right here, this narrative isn't proper. This narrative isn't proper. This code isn't proper. On and on and on. Anyways, this is what they give you, and then they're going to say, well, that proves that you've been discharged from the military. And you may have gone farther and even gotten one of these where it says honorable discharge, right? From the Armed Forces of the United States of America. Well, hey, just a second. That isn't who I have a contract with. I have a contract with the Armed Forces of the United States, not the Armed Forces of the United States of America. But it goes on to say that this testimony of your honorable and faithful service in the Army of the United States of America. Well, again, I wasn't in the Army of the United States of America. I was in the Army of the United States. So, this is a simulated legal process to make you think that you've been removed from the military. But it goes back to your contract. Forget all that, pretty paper. This is the one that matters. Here's your contract. Armed Forces of the United States. And if I don't have one of them discharge documents for the Armed Forces of the United States, then I'm still in the military. Every enlistee is still in the military. And we're entitled to receive pay, allowance, and other benefits as provided by law and regulation. Now, I've done videos where I've shown there's this thing called the Army Retirement Fund. You can find the Army Retirement Fund audit online. And when you read it, it says there's 1.4 trillion, with a T, trillion dollars of paid retirement pay in that fund. Which means it didn't go to the retiree who should have got it. It went in the fund. Now, why didn't the retiree take his money? How many military retirees would not take their jack if they knew they had it coming? Not, obviously not $1.4 trillion worth. So what does that mean? It means that money's going in there, but it ain't going to people like me or other enlistees that at the age of 60, we're supposed to get a pension. And we're not getting it. So, it's all about getting paid and getting an ID to put an end to the bullshit that Esquires do at all levels of court. Because this, so again, we have a case where a fiction, Donald J. Trump, is being tried as the President of the United States of America. Well, that's not his office. He's supposed to be the President of the United States, Donald John Trump. So that's wrong. Doesn't have a signature. There's nothing behind the S, right? So nobody signed it. Doesn't have a court seal on it. So this is like the aftermath of putting up with their bullshit at the end. But what about from the very beginning? Well, this may be that exact same case, and here's the summons for it. But if it isn't, it's for another case that Trump's been summoned to. Summons in Donald J. Trump. And you look at it, and it's like, well, the clerk didn't sign it, don't have a court seal. And 28 U.S.C. 1691 says all process of a court of the United States, and this would be the process of a court of the United States if it's a court of the United States. So I would have the seal of the clerk and her signature, or the seal of the court and the clerk's signature, and a proof of service to be filled out. All right, so this went to Trump, and he had to answer this. You'd say, well, somebody gave him bad advice. Well, that would be Pam Bondi, because she got one too. And it's the same way. They don't have any signature on it, got no court seal, there was no proof of service filled out, and yet they played along like this is all proper. Well, they do the exact same thing to your mom and dad, your kids, you, your neighbor. Go to court, it's all the same crap. They never do a summons proper where the clerk has signed it and it has a court seal, and that's just not federal court, that's state court too. The orders are always the same way, no court seal, no nothing. We need to redress these problems. So one way to do it is to allow all veterans to have their ID card. And we could go see things like this. Then we could go fill out some charges and specifications. And just as soon as you whack a couple of these Esquires, well, they'll stop doing it. They're not going to make any money in court anymore because they won't be able to play their bullshit games. But I don't care. You only go get a real job. So that's where we are today. I just mainly did the video to say, hey, I did a video talking about Trump, and I got a letter back from Trump. Ain't that some stuff? Good deal. Commander Trump's brief to enlistee on the Second Amendment. I got it, sir, and I reported back to Russell Voigt, the Director of Management and Budget. Maybe he'll do something, because I can't get Esquires to do anything. Okay, see you now.